So good evening, everyone. So guys, till now we have covered on-premises infrastructure explanation, right? So where we have seen what is on-premises infrastructure and how it is different from cloud infrastructure, right? And in AWS account creation, the day two we have seen, right? Cloud computing, cloud models and all. So this part, today we are going to see the basic server and networking concept. So I am going to skip this part. Okay. The reason behind that there is enough content which I have covered in the Linux and the shell scripting, which comes under basic server only. So under this basic server, if you I have written it as a basic server, but you guys are expertise into this basic server now. Okay. So this is enough for you. You no need to worry about this one. There are few things when I'll be creating the VPC and all. Before that, I'll let you know that what all ways you have to log into your dashboard. Suppose this is your console, right? So how you can log into your console, and normally in production environment, whether we'll get the console access or we'll get the terminal access, guys. These are the two things. And if you have to access the terminal access, then how you are going to access that terminal from your system, means locally. Like normally if you have to connect in a data center, so we use jump servers, right? Jump host and all, normally in production environment or anything, if it's a pre-prod also, right? Or a staging environment or a testing environment, then we use, guys, normally a Windows machine. But jump server is nothing but that is a Windows machine only. They are like your system only, it will be like your system only, which if you work for a client, so you have to connect to that jump host, and in jump host only there will be uh, some software which you need to request from the team to install, and through that you can connect to the terminal. This is basically AWS console. Okay, this is not the terminal. So how we can connect to a terminal directly, right? Or how we can connect, and just for your knowledge and understanding, then from this console also how we can connect through SSH client. Suppose that is a different stuff only when you have to connect to a virtual machine. I'm not talking about the virtual machine connectivity. I am talking about how you are going to connect to this particular AWS console, right? This is your account ID. So every account ID will be different for every organization. Okay, there will be a different account ID. Okay, so if you create a, so under that where you can create the different services, where you can use the different services. Suppose if you are using networking services, so under that you can use VPC services, correct? Correct. So if you see here, guys, if you click on here, right? So if you see what all services are there, right? What all services are there, all services it is mentioned here, right? If you see, these are the services and all. And if you see, like if I type VPC, correct? So VPC is also one service. Okay, you can see it's services only, under services only it's coming as a VPC. So this comes under your networking only. Okay, so this is for your understanding, and these are the ways I am going to tell you, right? That how you can connect to this AWS console. Now, coming back to here, as I said very clearly, that you guys should look after the basic server, because this I'm not going to tell again and again. So today we are going to cover the networking concepts, guys. So first of all, you guys tell me how many of you know about the VPC, means virtual private cloud. Like in AWS, we call it as a, and in Azure, we call this as a VNet, and in GCP, we call this again as a VPC. So, how many of you exactly know what exactly a VPC is? Any idea? Just wanted to understand from your end.
Yes, a little bit. I have idea exposure of BBC.
Yeah, go ahead, Sandhan.
So virtual private cloud is like what can I say? A segregated and isolated network only for your environment, right?
Hmm,
Where you have your own subnet and exposure to the world and internet
hmm,
depends on the internet gateway and all.
hmm,
Route tables, you have separate route tables.
hmm.
That's what virtual private cloud is. Yeah.
Okay. So that is called, anyone else want to go? Anyone wants to go? No? Okay, fine. So guys, just from here, understand, okay? I'll directly take you to this diagram. So VPC is nothing but this is your identification of your network. Okay. So VPC, again I am telling, this is nothing but this is a identification of your network. How it is identification of your network? For example, I am just giving here an example. Okay, suppose Wipro is there, okay, or Infosys is there, correct? Wipro is there or Infosys is there. They wanted to create their own network, their own private network, correct? And they want to create that network. For example, this is, you can take this one, right? Here. So, as I said, VPC is what? VPC is your identification of your network or identification of your cloud. Okay. So, virtual private cloud. Okay. So, if Wipro has to create its own private cloud, then what? Suppose why he wants to do this one? Because whatever the, suppose if he has to build a database, if he has to build a database, and if he has to build a application server over here, correct? If he has to build a application server over here, right? Or whatever the services he wants to build inside this box, I'm calling it as a box, just try to understand, which is nothing but this is your identification of, again, your network or your cloud. Under this only, all the services we belongs to whom? It belongs to Wipro only. Nobody else can access these services or these resources. Understanding my point, guys? Again, so if you have to build a database or if you have to deploy your database, okay, if you have to deploy your virtual machine, if you have to deploy your storage, okay, if you have to deploy your storage, if you have to deploy your HA, okay, so if you have to deploy your database, if you have to deploy your application server, you have to deploy your storage or any services, has to belong to this Wipro only. Correct? Means what I am telling is you have built your house, right? Correct? If suppose I have to build a house which belongs to me only, correct? So inside that, whatever the rooms I am building, whatever the interior I am doing, which all, right, utilities or anything I am putting, right, or I am integrating, everything belongs to me only. I am the owner of that building, and the things which is inside that house or the services which I am going to use or the resources which I am going to use, it's purely dedicated to Wipro only. Or if it's a different organization, it should belong to him only. Okay. So now understand from where and how we need to start this one. So for the basic understanding, what do you mean by VPC? So VPC is the identification of your network or identification of your cloud of that particular organization, or that you are building your own data center, okay, and that looks like this. So I'll come to this one, don't worry about that one. Again I'll be explaining this one. So this is your AWS cloud. Under that your VPC will be there. There will be a private IP, there will be a public IP, there will be a subnet 1, there will be a subnet 2, there will be a default VPC regions will be there, right? Your internet gateway will be there, your route table will be there, your subnet association will be there. So if you want to understand, you can understand with this diagram also. There will be a subnet association also. So how, don't get confused with all these, but how exactly this is we have to target. Correct. Why we are doing all this? Suppose if Wipro has to build his own VPC, correct? If Wipro has to build own VPC, then from where it has to start? Suppose I have given a task to you, Santan. Okay, Santan, go ahead and migrate my on-premises infrastructure. You have a application, correct? So that application, you simply my website only you take it. Okay, freshertube.com or abhishekroshan.com, which is already in a different hosting plan or in a on-premises infrastructure. And now I am telling you, Santan, please go ahead and deploy it in the AWS cloud. So Santan, how you are going to do it? What is your planning? How you are going to plan and all, right? There should be a proper planning, right? If you have to build a house, guys, correct? Then how you are going to build that house? So first you will start with a scratch, correct? How many rooms will be there? Okay, this is my requirement. Now the architect design will be coming into the picture, so he'll design where and all rooms will be there. Now he's going to give you a structural design. Yes or no? Yes or no, guys? Once
Yes,
they
sir.
will give you the structural design, forgot about building things. First, you have to plan it, correct? So the first thing is, if you see here, if it is a Paytm application, for example, I'm just telling Wipro is building a Paytm application or XYZ application. So first thing is he has to target, he has to select a region. That region is nothing but that region it's going to be Mumbai region, because it's a physical data center which he has to decide. So that is going to be a your Tokyo, it's going to be your Seoul or Singapore or Sydney. That your management is going to decide whichever the particular region. Zones will see later on. Okay, what is a zones and all. But that anyways I have explained you also what is a zone and all. But if you have to decide, then you have to start with a place. Like suppose if you have to build a building, first you are going to buy a plot, right? Where you have to buy a plot, whether you want to buy in Bangalore, right? In Bangalore there are many areas are there, right? Correct. In Bangalore, if I'll talk about in a general layman language, in Bangalore, if I have to build my house in Sarjapur area, correct, and there I have to target a particular region where I have to build it. Same way here, first thing is you need to start with a region, guys. Okay, so once you start with the region, now what all things you need to keep in your mind? So the first thing is your networking will be coming first. The first thing is you should work on your networking. See, before building your house, you have to create a design, right, for your particular plot. Suppose if you have a plot of 30 and 50 or like 1500 square feet, correct? So in that plot, so first you will start with a design, right? That how much it is, 30 by 50, right? So in that 30 by 50, okay, this 10 by 10 feet one room will be coming. Again, this again 20 feet by your 30 feet, there will be a hall will be there. There will be two bathrooms, 6 by 6 bathroom will be there. There will be a puja room, there will be a kitchen and all. So you are what you are doing basically. Same way here also you have to decide your networking. Then under that you are going to do the application deployment, database deployment. Database will be there, your storage will be there, your security will be there. You have to take care of the security also, correct? And it should be high availability also there. And at last you have to make sure that your application database and your entire infrastructure will be monitored properly. Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no, guys?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
security, so normal layman language, security, how you are going to make sure in your house? You are going to install CCTV and all, correct? You have to install CCTV and all. So this, if you think in that term, guys, there won't be any problem. If you understand thing in a layman language, it is very simple and easy to understand. Networking here, I'm not telling that networking, don't tell in interview, okay, if you have to build building, okay, you like if you are doing a normal first you have to select a region, right? You have to select a place where you are going to do the marking and all. correct? First we'll do the marking. If it is a 30-50 sites, then you need to do the marking first, where and all your rooms will be coming, correct? Then you are going to do the design and all, right? How the things will be coming, then you'll start digging it out. So like that only. So here, first thing is that we are going to focus on the networking part, guys. So under this networking only, your VPC service is coming. Your VPC service is coming. How this VPC service looks like? So this VPC service looks like this. Okay. So now again, so if this Wipro is there, these services are there which he has to deploy under this VPC, correct? Which is purely going to belongs to Wipro only, which is purely going to belongs to that particular organization only. Okay, so what is a VPC again? So VPC is nothing but it is the identification of your cloud or identification of your network, where every resource or services is going to belongs to that Wipro or that particular XYZ organization. Nobody else can access that one, correct? They are the admin, they are the owner of those services, correct? Now, now I am going to take this one, networking one, and I am coming over here. Now understand how what exactly a VPC and all. Okay, so see, suppose I said this is a box. Okay, inside this box, your zones will be there, guys. Okay, so these zones are nothing but these zones are like zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, right? I wanted to show you one diagram so you guys will understand. This is this you before also in the previous session I told you there is regions and there are availability zone. Yes or no? So if you see here, there is called 1A. Okay, you know there are three zones maximum in AWS, 1B, and there will be 1C. So AWS architecture is completely different from the Azure architecture. So AWS, how they plan is normally their zones will be hardly 700 meters away from each other. Suppose if you talk about this particular, okay, you talk about where is this? Okay, so if you talk about Mumbai only, okay, or if you talk about Tokyo, okay, this zone. So under this zone, the availability zones will be under, sorry, under this region, your availability zones will be like suppose AP Northeast. Current, this is the region, right? Correct. So under this one, how many zones will be there? So each zone will be separated by 700 meter only. This is the architecture of whom? This is the architecture of your AWS cloud. The gap between these two is almost 700 meter. But in Azure, so their architecture is absolutely different. It doesn't matter. Okay. So normally what they will do is like their zones will be zone one. Suppose it's in Mumbai, so zone two will be in I would say in Bengaluru, like that. So distance is, I don't think so. It's going to be a factor. The most important is high availability. And why we are creating these zones, guys? Why we are creating these zones? The reason behind that, to make sure you are going to maintain a high availability, and the fault tolerance will be zero. Because s- suppose if one VM has to be created here, one VM has to be created here, and one VM has to be created for the same application. So anyways, if one zone will be down, other two zone are up and running. One zone is down, in this one also there will be a rack and stack. There is availability set and all. So that and all also I'll tell you what do you mean by availability set, how we decide availability set and all. But here we are talking about networking. Guys, it is not confusing for you. Just tell me clearly, first of all. Are you guys understanding what I want to convey here?
Yes,
Are
sir.
you see zones? Why? Because VPC, how it works, guys. You see, if you don't understand this one, you won't be able to create your virtual private cloud, your own virtual private network, guys. You need to understand, then only you will see this is a production VPC CIDR. We need to decide the IP. I'm not came to IP yet. I'm just talking about VPC. Why we need these IPs and all. How we are going to decide this IP range and all. Subnet 1, subnet 2, subnet 3, subnet 4, subnet 5, like this. How you are going to create your pre-prod. How you are going to create your disaster recovery. It's going your over the head. Please let me know. I'll make you understand if you are not understanding. Leave this one. First you come over here. Okay. Here. So to build I said VPC is what? Virtual private cloud is identification of your cloud or your network, which is purely belongs to Wipro or that XYZ organization. So suppose if I have to build my own VPC. So what all things I need? First thing is that zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. Zone 1, zone 2, zone 3 is what? Zone 1, zone 2 is like zone 1, zone 2, zone 3 is like that. And why we have this zone 1, zone 2, zone 3 in one data center? Because to maintain high availability. Correct? Now again come back here. So in zone 1, if I have to deploy how many VMs? If zone 1, if I'll tell, if I have to deploy, okay, 10 VMs. If I have to deploy 10 VMs, guys. Yes or no? So same thing in zone 2 also, I have to deploy another 10 VMs. Okay. And in zone 3 also, I have to deploy another 10 VMs. Correct? For the same application, I am telling you. For the same application, I am doing all this. So how I am going to do that one? So what all things I need it? These are the VMs, virtual machines. Correct? So you are going to spin up your virtual machines only under these zones. Correct? Under these zones, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, 1A, 1B, and 1C. Correct? Now the next thing is that for that, what all things are, why we need and all this one. First, try to understand. Suppose Yogesh is here, correct, and he wants to access my virtual private cloud or my work. If he's Yogesh is a developer or a consumer or anything you can say, okay, Yogesh is a developer and Yogesh want to access this virtual private cloud, and this data center, this virtual private cloud is nothing but this is your data center which is in private network. So if suppose he has to reach, if he has to reach to where? Here, correct? If he has to reach here, then how he has to reach over here? So first of all, Yogesh has to be in public network. Forgot about. Suppose Yogesh is a end user only or a consumer only, which, and my application, the Paytm application is in this particular virtual private cloud. Okay, and if he as a customer he wants to reach out to this particular application, then how he has to reach out to this particular network? So what all things? So first he has to be in the public network. Now the next thing is that he has to reach out to the gateway, and this gateway has to be again in the public network. This gateway cannot be in the private network. Remember, again I am telling you, because your VPC nothing but your data center has to be in private network. Your gateway cannot be in the private network. Your gateway has to be in the public network, and this guy Yogesh also has to be in the public network if he has to access an application which is hosted inside this virtual private cloud. If he has to access, suppose my application only, I am talking about, I have created an app, okay, and that app I have hosted in this particular, for example, here only, you leave it, okay. I'm not talking about any organization and all, okay. So here, Abhishek, Roshan, okay, this is the app name, okay. This is the app name, okay, which I have deployed in this virtual private cloud in my own data center, which is in private network. If Yogesh has to access, he has to come via this only. Okay, so he has came here. Once he came here, so see, there is something called route table, guys. So what a route table is going to do? Route table is going to route the traffic from your public network to your private network. Routing. You know routing, right? If you have to route something, so normally if you take, so the traffic has to go from a, if you see divergence also in a layman example, right? So everybody cannot, so suppose a normal example I am telling, a normal public has to reach to any of the government services and all, right? So there will be check posts and all, correct? Yes or no, guys? Normally if you have to, for example only, if you have to travel from India to US, correct? So you have to go via airports only, correct? And your validation, your everything is going to check, then only they will allow you to enter into US, correct? From India if you are traveling to US, so there is a gateway, correct? So that gateway is this one, that is fine. But after that is, it has to route from there, you are going to California or Ohio or any of the city of US, there should be another check post, correct? So same way here also, if the traffic has to reach out to this virtual private cloud, okay, to this network or to this particular my data center, if you have to reach to my data center, then you have to come via a route table. Means that route table is going to route the traffic from public network to the private network, right? And this zone 1, zone 2 and zone 3 is nothing but this is subnet 1, subnet 2, subnet 3. What do you mean by this subnet? This subnet is nothing but this is the range of the IPs. Suppose if I have created 10 VMs, so that 10 VM has to assign some IPs, right? I have to assign IPs to those 10 VMs, right, guys? Again, in subnet 2, the IP has to assign to this another 10 VM. Subnet 3, again, the IP has to assign to this another 10 VM. Correct? So again, this is the routing has been done, but we cannot take all this as an individual. So for this, there should be a endpoint which is going to, it's nothing but it's a collection of multiple subnet. Means what I am telling is this particular subnet, okay, subnet 1 or subnet 2 or subnet 3, correct, has to reach out, okay? Or if you are reaching, suppose if you want to, this guy has to access this zone 1, zone 1 VMs, okay? So then he has to, how he, and again he has to reach out to this zone 2 VM, again he has to reach out to zone 3 VMs, then how he has to reach out to all these VMs? There should be a subnet association, and that subnet association we call it as a collection of multiple subnets. Understanding my point, yes or no? What is a route table?
Yes, sir.
What is a data center gateway? And data center gateway, 100% it cannot be in a private network, it has to be in the public network only, because you are connecting. Why what is the definition of, if you guys remember that I have told you there is a networking and troubleshooting in Linux, right? At that time I have explained you what do you mean by gateway, why we use gateway, correct? Correct. When you are, what exactly a gateway? Can anyone tell me why we use gateway? Why we use gateway? Guys, are you forgetting everything? Why we use gateway? See, this is that reason I am from day one. I am telling you, Linux is very, very important, guys. There also I've told you why we need gateway. The purpose of the gateway is to join two networks. It's a intersection between two network, and that is what I am doing over here, right? That is what I am trying to do it over here, yes or no? So I am basically, this gateway is doing what? This gateway is sending this public traffic to the private network, and this private network, under which my VPC is there. This is my VPC, right? My data center is my private network. And who is routing all these things? So your route table is doing the routing of your public traffic to where? To where, guys? To your private network, correct? And because there are multiple zones, so we have multiple subnets, and this to make this multiple subnets, we make it as a subnet association. That is nothing but collection of multiple subnets. Understanding my point? Yes or no? Yes or no? Now, the question here is again, this I'll explain. Don't worry. Again, I'll explain. Okay. So now the question here is how many maximum VPC you can create in a region? How many? This is a interview question, guys. Remember this one. How many maximum VPC you can create in a region? So you can create maximum 6 VPC. Suppose if I have to create my own data center for this account I'm talking about, then you have to say, sir, then if suppose Infosys, you are telling maximum 6 VPC, so what Infosys will do, what Wipro will do, so they have their own account. The identification is not with the identification of your network or identification of the cloud is not with your VPC. The identification is based on the subscription from day one. I am telling you, it's based on your account ID. Every organization has their different account ID or a different account subscription. Correct? So, this is an interview question, guys, which you need to remember. Okay. So, where I was. Yeah, so maximum you can create 6 VPC. Now you have to tell that can we have multiple route table? No, this is you cannot be. So for one VPC, only one route table is there. They can ask. So suppose this can be interview question only, right? So can we create multiple VPC in one region? No, we can create maximum 6 VPC, and also you have to tell that for one account ID. Now, so what do you mean by this subnet association? This is your endpoint. This is your endpoint only, correct? And at the same time, so can your this question can be also asked like, can we create your data center? Sorry, your gateway. Okay, data center gateway. Basically, this is your data center gateway only. Can be this in the your private network? No, this can be only in your public network. Then only a consumer can able to access your private data center, basically, correct? Or any of this VM. Now you will understand this diagram. What is that diagram? And this is diagram. So VPC is identification of your cloud. So from the internet gateway, which is outside your VPC, in from the internet gateway, the traffic has to come to the route table. Route table has to route the traffic through DNS, because see DNS also I have explained. Now you are everything getting into your picture, right? How things are working, correct? If somebody is going to ask you that suppose if you are hitting a URL, how exactly it's working, now will you guys able to answer that question? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes.
So it will come from your internet gateway, and the internet gateway will be in public network. From there, it will come to route table. The definition of your route table to route the traffic from public network to that private network. Again, it will be redirect the traffic, and it will goes through the DNS. Basically, it is in this direction, inbound and outbound. You know there is something called inbound and outbound, right? Everything will come under here only. So it will come to subnet association again in the subnet one, where your range of IP or your VMs you have created for your app, and there will be an IP assigned to that one, correct? So guys, this is a brief explanation of your VPC. This is your brief explanation of your, I would say, what is zone 1, why we need zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3. Now this is clear for you guys. Now this is, and why we need zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3, right? To make sure high availability. And that is what I have mentioned over here. That is what I have mentioned HA. This comes under here only. Now in under networking, your VPC service is there. So the first thing you need to select your region. In the networking, VPC will come. Okay. Under VPC, how it works and all that I have already told you. Now there is something which you need to understand. So if you see the definition over here, now I no need to read this one. Amazon Virtual Private Cloud lets customer provision a private isolated section of Amazon Web Services Cloud where they can launch AWS resources in a virtual network using customer defined IP addresses. Have you guys understand anything? No. Now understand this part. IP addresses range. You have to understand this one. Why we need to understand this one? Because you have to create a Excel sheet like this. You have to create, where that gone here? Closed? Hmm. Hmm. So you have to create a Excel sheet like this where your production IP you need to decide, your pre-prod IP you need to decide, and your DR unit. And that is what call your CIDR. This is also interview question. Classless inter-domain routing. That is nothing but in AWS we call CIDR as a IPv4 as a CIDR only, classless inter-domain routing. And how we are going to decide our IPv4? That is what your IP section. Okay. Now understand what is this IP ranges, how we decide this IP ranges, and that is what the actual topic for today, networking concepts. Now I am coming to that one. Okay. So this is a how it has to come to there. You guys have to understand the complete background. Okay. Now understand this one. I am only taking one part. I am only taking the networking part. Okay. This is your networking part. Let me make it like this. Let me change this in this color. Okay. Uh, okay. Let it be like this. And this has to be blue. Okay. Fine. So networking basically divides under, or you can say IP section. Okay. IP section is going to divide between IPv4 and IPv6, guys. So IPv6 we are not going to touch. You no need to worry about that one. You have to only worry about whom? You have to worry about this, correct? You have to worry about this IPv4 because through this only you are going to assign the IP, correct? So IPv4 is 32-bit, IPv6 is 128-bit, correct? So 32-bit. So in this 32-bit, and if you see this 32-bit, suppose if you have, and the range is also there 0 to 255, correct? How we are going to decide this range? What is the, why we call it as a 32-bit? Because this everything is decided by whom? INA. Internet Assigned Numbers Authority. Go and check in Google. We are not deciding this IPv4. This is taken care by Internet Assigned Numbers Authority, INA. This 32-bit. Okay. So this 32-bit, where is it? Okay. So and then suppose this 32-bit means suppose your IP is 1.1.1.1. Means you are going to take the octet 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8. 8 4 ja 32. 32-bit. Correct. Now the range, how we are deciding? So the range is binary plus octal. Binary is 0 and 1 equal to 2. Octal is your 0 to 7, that is 8. So if I'll tell you how this range is going to decide, so now you have to tell me there is a formula 2 to the power 7, 2 plus 2 to the power 6 plus 2 to the power 5 up to 2 to the power 0 equal to 255. And that is what the range. We are not touching anything as of now. We are still in this one. Okay. Now, so in suppose you are IBM has to create 10K VMs, okay, for his virtual private cloud. If IBM, for here I'm just given an example, here I am just given for my app, okay, I need only 2 VMs maximum for each zone, for each subnet, okay. So how I have to decide the IP range? I have to decide the IP range, guys, correct? Those IPs is going to assign to these VMs, right? I have to decide it first, correct? And then only this particular diagram or this particular Excel sheet is going, you are going to make, correct? You have to make a Excel sheet like this first of all for each zone. Getting my point? Yes or no? Yes or no? No.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Uh,
So here, suppose if IBM has to create 10K VM for his own virtual private cloud, Accenture has to create 1K VM for its own virtual private cloud, Wipro has to create 200 VMs only. So I have to choose between class A, class B, class C, and class D and class E only. Correct? These are the classes of your IP. I am not doing anything. Everything is done by these guys. Aina. They have only segregated into these class A, class B, and class C and class. Again, this thing I think I have already told in Linux. There is already a topic where I have explained this one, right? Correct. So these two we are not going to touch. Why? Because class D is reserved for multicast. Class E is reserved for your R&D. So for class A, the range will be 0 to 126. Class B, the range will be 128 to 191. We need to get a range of IP, and the range of IP is this only. How this 255 is coming, that also I have told you the formula, how we are deciding how it is coming 255. Now we have to choose between these three classes only. So under which class? Suppose IBM has to go under which class? Accenture has to go under which class? Wipro has to go under which class? It depends upon your range of selection, your range of IP only. How many IPs you want for your VMs? Means how many VMs you want to create. According to that, you have to decide your IP range or the class of the IP. 10 to 127. Why it is not 127 again started? Why it is not started with 127? Where is 127? Who is going to tell me? Who is going to tell me?
It's for research or something, sir.
Vishal, you are there?
Yes, sir. It's the 127 is for 127 is the loop back IP, sir. Basically, in our
Ah,
Linux.
now you don't do like this, Vishal, please. Okay. You guys have, I have given so much time in Linux and shell scripting. Leave about shell scripting in Linux only, correct? That is for loop back address, correct? So the range will be 0 to 126. Class B is 128 to 191. Class C it's going to be 192 to 223. So how they choose class C, correct? Because if you have less VMs, I'm not talking about the other one. I'm talking about how they choose class C. Huh. So now see here everything very clearly. Okay. So how we are going to provision the servers? This is the things which you have to decide how we are going to provision the server, whether which and under which class your VMs is going to fall, whether it's a class A, sorry, here, my bad, guys, class B, right, or class C, correct? So that decide upon your host bit and network bit, correct? So if you have to, for example, I'm just telling here, given I have that, if you have to send an email or message, then we need to have one host bit and one network bit, correct? You need a host, right? Correct. If you have to send a message, if I have to send a message to Vishal, then I need one network bit and one host bit. So in class A, where the range is 0 to 126, again, I have not done this one. This has been done by the Aina, not Aina. It's Aina. Okay. So it's Aina, guys. So Aina, so remember, so how it's in class A, the first bit it's going to be network bit, rest all bit it's going to be host bit. And the network bit is static. You cannot change the network bit. Only you can make the change of the host bit only. Correct? So if you take this one, so for the network 8, for the host 888. So here if you take n equal to 8, host equal to 24. So how the IP range is deciding in class A is the formula is 2 to the power h minus 2. So host bit 2 to the power 24 minus 2. How much IPs you are going to get? 1,777,654. You guys can calculate. This is how, guys, you are deciding your class A IP range. Okay. So you can only calculate the host bit. You cannot make the changes in the network bit because that is static. Okay. So you can only 2 to the power 24. From here only you can understand 8 plus 8 plus 8, 24, and minus 2. It comes around 1,777,654. Okay. Now the next thing is for class B 128 to 191, there will be two network bit, there will be two host bit, guys. So 16 and 16, right? So the host bit, because network bit we are not going to touch, right? We are only going to touch the host bit. 2 to the power 16 minus 2, 65534, right? And this everything is defined by INA. Class C again, 3 will be network bit means 24, and the value of your host bit will be 8, so it's coming around 254. 2 to the power 16 minus 2, it's coming around 254, right? So obviously if I have to provision 200 VMs, then I have to choose class C. Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Correct. Now you guys have understand how you can decide how many VMs you have to provision for your virtual private cloud, and that is what the question is. How many, sorry, how many servers we can provision? Okay. So the servers you can provision here, the data is here. If you go with class A, you can provision this much of servers, 1,777,654. If you go with class B, you can provision 65534. If you go with class C, you can provision 254 VMs. Correct. So it totally depends upon your requirement. If suppose IBM has to create 10K VMs, Accenture has to create 1K VMs, and Wipro has to create 200 VMs. So obviously, Wipro has to choose class C only. And how it is decided? Everything is
So,
defined by INA. Yeah, please go ahead.
sir, when Amazon sale will be there in the festival season, so there's so many people are going to hit the Amazon website, sir. So
Mm,
that time they are going to do this in class A, right? Because there's so many VMs are used, right?
mm. That is a different thing. So many, see, you are telling they are hitting the app, first of all. Hitting app is a different thing, Vishal. I am talking about you are assigning IP to that. You
VM,
are when you are provisioning a VM, correct? How many
right?
VMs is suppose that is absolutely a different thing you are talking about, and the range of IPs why we need and how we are going to decide the range of IPs. That depends upon class A, class B, and class C. Correct? Any doubt in this one, guys? And this diagram, no need to get confused. This is one diagram, guys. See, the same thing I have explained you in a very simpler way. If you see this diagram with this one, this is the same diagram. If I would have explained with this diagram, will you guys able to understand? Now see, understand. Here also there is one internet gateway, yes or no? But it is outside your VPC. You can understand. One second. Let me edit this one.
Public gateway, right, sir?
Correct? You see here, this internet gateway is outside your VPC, correct? And you are, this
Yes,
is
sir.
the main route table. This is the route table is here, right? You are trying to reach out from a public network, from a public cloud, correct? To your private data center, correct? If you want to access this instance, so this instance is also having a public and private IPv4, correct? So for the employees, they will access it with the private IPv4. Leave about those one. Don't get confused. Only understand. See, I said subnet one. In subnet one, you have created your instances. Yes or no? You have created one instance. Correct. And this is nothing but your availability zone A. Correct. In subnet two, right? Subnet is what means it is the range of the IPs which you have to decide before provisioning your servers, and it is in availability zone B. Correct. There is a route table which has to route the traffic from your internet gateway. Suppose you want to access the availability zone 1, the subnet 1 EC2, then there should be someone who has to reroute you, correct? Who has to route you, correct? Suppose you want to go to this, you want to access this VM, or you want to access this VM, so there should be a divider, right? Routing should be there. Okay, no, you came to a, you are going to a highway. Suppose from highway, if you have to uh, go to, I would say, UP, and from you are coming from Bengaluru, you have to go to UP, or if you have to go to Gujarat, correct? So there should be a diversion, right? Somebody has to reroute, whether it's a toll, correct? From toll only you are taking, or some diversion has to be there, from where you have to route to UP, or if you have to route to your Gujarat. Okay, that is what I am telling. If you have to reach out to EC2 in zone 1, which is nothing but your subnet 1, subnet again, understand, subnet is nothing but this is your range of IP. Okay, and that is what I have. Same thing. Now it is easy for you, and this is your default VPC. This is in your private network, correct? Now you see this one and understand from here, correct? That is what I have tried to make you. And this is your default region. Clear? So in the next class, guys, will again I'll be repeating this one. The reason behind that, we are going to see how we can create the VPC and how we can assign IP to VPC, and how we are going to choose class C, which I have already explained you. And those IPv4 is nothing but that is your CIDR, classless inter-domain routing. Correct? See this one again. Okay. So the first thing is your region. So in region, you have to decide your networking, your application deployment, your database, your storage, your security, your high availability, your monitoring. Fine. From this is a box. Just understand VPC is nothing but this is like your box, and every resources inside this box is going to belongs to that particular XYZ organization. right? Now, this is how your VPC look likes, correct? And what is the IP section, right? It comes IP section, IP addresses or the range, how we decide. I have told you these are the way, okay, we decide and how we choose class C, class A or class B as per your requirement, guys. Correct? Right?
Yes, sir.
Any doubt, guys? How was the today's session?
It's very good, sir.
It will, let's go more, then you guys will understand. I don't teach, so whatever I did in my production environment, those things only I'm going to teach you. The practicals. This is how we do migration, guys. First thing is you have to decide, you have to do your networking part only. After that, only you are going to provision the VMs and all. First, you have to decide, you have to choose how many IPs you and because that will also going to cost you, correct? Yes or no? Correct? Everything has to be calculated. How many VMs you want? So, okay, I want 10 VMs in one zone or in, right? In zone 2, and at the same time you need to make sure high availability should be there, correct? Then only you will be able to do disaster recovery, right? Yes, Vishal.
According to the load on application, so the VM will be increase or decrease, right? So
That is auto scaling, Vishal.
automatic.
So
Yes.
depends upon the traffic, okay? So there is a service, okay, in AWS only, where you can predefine your, suppose there will be a minimum range, there will be a maximum range, okay? So you have calculated, okay, suppose you have seen from Monday to Friday you required only 2 VMs, correct? As per the traffic. But in
Right.
the peak hours like Saturday and Sunday, you see there will be a huge, when you said this example, right? When there will be a offer, there will be a sale going on. So there will be a huge hit, correct? Correct. So
Sir.
in that
Yes.
case, how you are going to make sure that are you going to create those VMs again and again? No. It has to be done automatically. Correct. So the VM has to scale out and the VM has to scale in. Means if we don't require those VMs, so it should be automatically deleted. And the traffic in the peak hours, okay, when the traffic is heavy, at that time the VM has to scale out. It has to be automatically scale out to manage to uh, to take the load of that particular traffic. Correct. So that is auto scaling. So policies are there, which it is there. I'll explain those things also. Don't worry. Okay, it is
Yes, sir.
there already. Okay, so guys, I am ending up the session here only. Thank you for staying connected with me. Let's connect again tomorrow for a new topic. Till then, just take care of yourself, your loved one. Bye bye and Jai Hind.
Yes,
Jai
sir.
Hind, sir.
Good night.
Jai Hind, sir.